Hello and a warm welcome to Federal special program Capital Beat. Rajya Sabha recently passed the contentious Chief Election Commissioners and other election commissioners appointments, condition of service and terms of office bill 2023. This bill sets down the procedure of the appointments of the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners. Now, the opposition has protested because the bone of contention is the selection committee, which will now comprise of Prime Minister. It will comprise of the leader of the opposition, and the third member of the committee will be the cabinet minister chosen by the Prime Minister. So it's very simple that the selection panel will be a biased one, which will tilt towards the government. And that is what the opposition has protested all about. But the million-dollar question is that what will happen to the Indian democracy, where we say that India's elections will be free and fair? Joining me now is former Chief Election Commissioner and a person who's been very, very articulate on this subject, S.Y. Quraishi. So thank you so much for joining on the Federal. And so your first thoughts really to the bill which has been passed by Rajya Sabha. Opposition, of course, has been protesting, and the bone of contention, as I said, was the selection committee. But as a former Chief Election Commissioner, what you really think has the bill done to the fabric of the country and also to an autonomous body like Election Commission?
Yeah, actually, as you rightly said, the bill is controversial. The only consolation is that something which they had tried to do, the downgrade the status of the election commissioners, has been stopped, has been undone. Now the original status, all three members being equivalent to a Supreme Court judge, has been restored, which is a sensible thing, about which some retired election commissioners, CEC, had represented to the PM also, and I'm so grateful that they conceded. But there are still lots of questions. First of all is about the collegium. Now this bill has been brought in not suo moto, but because of the orders of the Supreme Court, because some people had gone in PIL that the appointment system of election commissioner is defective. And I have always said many times that the most powerful election commission of the world has the most defective system of appointment, which is the government of the day can appoint anybody. I was also a beneficiary of the system, I admit, but it's a miracle that for 60 years, 65 years, people appointed that way unilaterally by the government did not toe the government line. They were totally independent, as was expected from the Constitution. Because once appointed, you can, our Constitution itself says, once appointed, an election commissioner cannot be removed except like a judge of the Supreme Court, which is through a process of impeachment. So equation is established through that article of the Constitution. Now, and which is why we felt independent and we behaved independent, and there was hardly any complaint. It's a part of history. And in fact, every chief election commissioner took election commission to greater heights of glory, and that is how it has been going on. But the fact that we are the only country in the world where the appointment was made unilaterally by the government of the day was something which was a sore point, and there was a demand that there should be a collegium system. Every country in the world has that, at least they have a collegium, but most of them have parliamentary scrutiny. You know, the constitutional committee, they interview, in some cases, the entire parliament interviews these candidates. In some countries, this interview is even live telecast nationally, so that everyone knows that the people being selected will be fair and neutral and are acceptable across political parties. That was the intention. Now, collegium, we are already familiar with the collegium system. It is working for CIC, CVC, which are not even constitutional bodies, they are statutory bodies. Even for Director CBI, who is a statutory body, who is the head of department, like Department of Agriculture. Technically, nothing more, nothing less. So, but because of the role it plays, Supreme Court decided that they should be appointed by collegium. So the collegium in all these cases consists of Prime Minister, Chief Justice of India, and Leader of Opposition. All the appointments made in the last few years, the CIC, CVC, or anyone, none has been questioned, because the once Leader of Opposition is present in the collegium, there is no moral authority left to the opposition to object. Look, because your man was there in the selection committee. So
right. But what you're just pointing out is very clear that this bill has nullified Supreme Court and what the Supreme Court said earlier. When the Supreme Court in March said that the panel should comprise of Prime Minister, it should comprise of CJI and the leader of the opposition. So what does this basically do? It has undermined the authority of the Supreme Court.
No. I would like to correct you. That Supreme Court did not say that the collegium should have this following composition, which you mentioned. The Supreme Court said that Constitution expected that a law will be brought in to spell out all these details, who will be qualified, who will be
eligible. Still the law is not framed.
Yeah. Till the law is passed, this will be the collegium.
Right.
So that way the decision cannot be faulted. So now some people say that now because of this act, Prime Minister has concentrated all the powers in him. That allegation is also wrong. Prime Minister has all the power now, unilaterally. Now at least there is a collegium. So, and there is a leader of opposition, howsoever nominal, there is a collegium who can at least protest on file.
No,
right.
but Quraishi, when the cabinet minister will be chosen by the prime minister, so which means it's always going to be 2 and 2 and 1.
Yes, correct. Absolutely. This composition is totally absurd. Totally, blatantly absurd. It has bad optics. How can there be a collegium? The purpose of collegium is defeated. And in fact, for this reason, this will go back to the Supreme Court, let me tell you. The reason why Supreme Court wanted the act and talked of a collegium was that there should be a perception of neutrality. Now, how can there be a neutral and fair selection when out of 3 members, 2 are Prime Minister and his own cabinet colleague?
Right. Absolutely. So do you see this bill being challenged again? Because a lot of people have criticized that, this bill has really done a damage to the Election Commission and also on the basic doctrine of the Constitution, the basic structure of the Constitution.
Yeah, I think I'm sure it will go back because the reason why when the Supreme Court passed this judgment asking the government to bring a law and interim arrangement of a collegium, the logic that they gave was that this selection has to be bilateral or multilateral. It cannot be unilateral. So that purpose is defeated. Therefore, that question is still alive and on which it is likely to go back to the Supreme Court.
Mr. Quraishi, according to you, what should be the composition of this selection panel or the selection committee? What, according to you, should be the composition? Because obviously, if a cabinet minister is chosen by the prime minister, then obviously we have 2 people from
obviously, the cabinet minister being a member of the collegium is totally absurd. Please pardon my strong language on this. Yeah, but the collegium with which we are familiar, the Chief Justice has been on the collegium. Has Chief Justice created any problem for the Prime Minister in the last 10 years on any appointment? All appointments have happened smoothly. So therefore, the already established collegium perhaps is the best thing. Otherwise, we can go, but we can go beyond it. But then there will be questions about every formulation. So, but the established convention should continue. And in fact, one more, number one, the collegium should be the existing collegium. Secondly, now that they have introduced something new, that there will be a shortlisting committee. A shortlisting committee will shortlist 5 names from the level of secretaries. Now, obviously, all those 5 secretaries would have been cleared by the shortlisting committee from the government, from the Prime Minister, which means all 5 are acceptable to the Prime Minister. If I was the Prime Minister, I will tell the LOP, look, here are these 5 given to us by the shortlisting committee. Put your finger on anyone and he will be the election commissioner, acceptable to me, because all 5 are acceptable to the government anyway. So if leader of opposition will also feel happy that I was given the final word, and the one he chooses will be in any case a favorite of the government, because for all 5 are going to be the favorites of the government. But it will be good optics, so therefore a unanimous decision can be added, which will not alter what the government wants to do, but at the same time, it will create very good optics.
So where do you think is the hope right now? Because I don't know whether how soon this bill will be challenged, sir, in the court. But then you have general elections now coming up. And what is the kind of challenge which you see in the coming months?
No, the challenge I think will come if it does immediately, because in February there is going to be a vacancy. And in fact, even earlier, the hurry in which the third member was appointed, about which a controversy was raised, all in a day, was because the matter was already in the court. So actually, that also was a little inappropriate when the Supreme Court is already discussing that subject. You could have waited a week. No, but then to preempt that, within a day, everything happened. So, which became controversial. Although there are some, mistaken notion there, about voluntary retirement and all that, I think that's all wrong. No voluntary retirement is required. Even if that gentleman sought voluntary retirement was wrong. If the government rushed it through, it was wrong. I also joined, and the law is, the rule is, it is deemed retirement. With the moment you sign, as I become the election commissioner, you are deemed to have retired. When there is deemed, I did not seek it. I had one more year to go. I was a serving secretary, so same analogy, but deemed retirement, because there is so much of ignorance on the subject at all levels. I'm shocked, and on which the debate, national debate, everything goes on when they don't even know the rules.
But sir, don't you think that the intentions of the government are very, very evident for all to see, that they wanted their own people to be as part of the selection committee, and that is why the cabinet minister has been chosen? Now, what do you think, according to you, how would you really read, as a former chief election commissioner, how would you read this part of the bill where the cabinet minister is chosen by the prime minister, and they have stepped the presence of the chief justice of India completely?
Yeah. No, actually, it is patently absurd, because we don't need a collegium anymore. The result is a foregone conclusion. Can you imagine one cabinet minister disagreeing with the prime minister? So the collegium, it has gone for a 6. Already there is 2-1. So why go through the formality and the ritual of a meeting and all that? So who are we fooling? So therefore, this absolutely, the word which I've been using is absurd. This constitution. They could have found some maybe retired chief justice or some eminent politician, or a journalist, or intellectual or academic. But this formulation is definitely not acceptable.
But sir, what are your expectations? Supposing if this bill is challenged in the Supreme Court, if the stay is not given, then what happens in the coming months? And as you said, that there is going to be a vacancy coming up in February. So what happens, and what are we going to see? I mean, the biggest question is that will India's election 2024 will be free and fair, or is it going to be, the wish and the aspiration of BJP will be writ large everywhere, because that's the ruling party?
Two different issues there. What will be the decision of the Supreme Court? It's difficult to say. But if you go by the past judgment, for instance, in 2002, when criminalization of politics was the issue before the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court said that you have to declare every MP while filing his nomination, a candidate while filing his nomination has to show all the pending criminal cases against him and all the convictions, besides the financial thing. So they asked the government to pass an act. The government passed an act, but tinkered with the judgment, and they said only the convictions have to be declared. Ongoing cases will not be declared. So the civil society went back to the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court declared that law ultra vires. Look, you are trying to cheat. You are trying to bypass our judgment. You are trying to scuttle the judgment. No way. So that law was declared illegal. And they said, no, come back to that. What we have said, that all pending cases and all convicted cases, they all have to be declared. So there was a Supreme Court at that time also. And that was their thinking and that was their judgment. I only hope that the current dispensation lives up to those standards.
People also say, Mr. Quraishi, that not much can we expect from this government. And if they continue like this to bulldoze the bill, which they have already, the CEC bill, I don't know how long it will take for the bill to be stayed in Supreme Court. It all depends. But the time is running short because you have elections and model code of conduct soon will be announced sometimes in March. So how soon can you see the things happening, or do you see this bill actually, getting a stay on the bill?
Yeah, well, it all depends on the Supreme Court. Supreme Court can stay anything in 1 minute, and they can decide cases very quickly when they want to, and they don't take up extremely urgent issues of national interest for years. So, which itself is a very questionable thing that is happening. So, lots of questionable things are happening around us. So, we really don't know. It becomes very unpredictable.
Right. Mr. Quraishi, everybody has been saying that, India is a democracy where we have seen free and fair elections, and not like for so many decades this has been said. But this bill, what does it do really? Is it like a final nail in the coffin of Indian democracy, if I may use a strong word?
Well, actually, I would say that the bill is a mixed bag. And for instance, currently, no qualification is prescribed for a selection of an election commissioner. A man in the street can be picked up and made election commissioner. So, although it's a different matter that all governments in the past 60, 70 years have been appointing only secretary level officers. Now, this bill has made it very explicit that only secretary or equivalent officers will be selected, which is a good thing. Otherwise, all kinds of people could have joined the election commission, but that's one thing. Then shortlisting committee is an idea which is prevalent in many countries. That's also a good thing, except I had objected at that time, which has been rectified in this, that the shortlisting committee was headed by the cabinet secretary with two other secretaries. Now, the cabinet secretary is selecting people who are hired to him. Now, which is patently the objectionable. So that has been changed. Now the chairman of this shortlisting committee is the law minister, which is a good thing. This is an improvement. Now, the other formulation of the committee was wrong on another front also, that cabinet secretary himself could be a candidate. His two colleagues could themselves be candidates. But if they are in the shortlisting committee, they cannot recommend themselves. So why deny them this possibility? So that has been corrected. Now that the law minister. So, but one improvement which was there in the original bill 2 months ago and has been undone upsets me a lot. I had praised it that the best thing which had happened in the previous bill, that the two election commissioners out of the three who have no protection from removal, they were being provided protection equivalent to the CEC, which means only through impeachment. Now, what is the consequence of this? And I have written many articles on the subject, and a collection of my articles which has come in this recent book. Now, I have mentioned many times that these two guys feel they are on probation because they have no protection from removal. And what is being cited now, I heard informally by the law ministry, that the Constitution says that. Well, the Constitution, when it said that the CEC can only be removed by the impeachment, and if the other commissioners, if they are appointed short time for the election, they can only be removed on the recommendation of the CEC. Now, they are quoting the Constitution. They are so loyal to the Constitution. Now, you should remember, the protection given to the CEC then was not to an individual, it was to an institution of the Election Commission, in which was a one-man commission. Now it is a three-member commission. So logically, the protection given to the institution has to extend to all three, which was being done 2 months ago in the bill, which was a sensible thing. That sensible thing has been undone, and with a very spurious logic. Look, it is in the Constitution. Look, you have changed the Constitution so many times. You are only making a law in the spirit of the constitution, because constitution expected you to bring a law. So why are you misquoting the constitution by distorting it?
So in your book also, you pointed out, a lot of things about the relation between the Indian democracy and the elections. Now, in the long run, if we do not know how it's going to be challenged, what Supreme Court will say, but how do you see the things unfolding as far as the election process in India is concerned, especially in the run-up to 2024?
Neelu, frankly, I could not really understand your question. If you can rephrase it.
No, I'm saying that what can you expect really in the coming months now? Because we do not know how soon the bill will be challenged, what Supreme Court will say, when it will put a stay on it. We do not know all of that. But how do you see things unfolding in the coming months, in the run-up to 2024 elections?
I think even if we presume that the status quo continues, so only the one test will come in February when the new member is to be appointed, whether he will come directly by the executive, by the Prime Minister as I was appointed, or through a collegium, even this kind of funny collegium which has been mentioned. So it doesn't make any difference, because it will be totally acceptable to the government and totally unacceptable to the opposition. So, but actually, the election commission, otherwise, the fact that we do the biggest management event of the world, in the controversy, we forget to give credit to the election commission organizing the event of this magnitude with 90 countries rolled into one and conducting it peacefully. Most of the election actually is on autopilot. So, because our entire machinery down the line in the field, do you know how many people conduct the elections? 12 million people, all government servants, and all trained and expected to give zero error election. So the fact that the election commission is able to conduct this kind of level of election, all credit to them, which should not be forgotten in the heat of the controversy. Only a couple of controversies which used to come was about the model code of conduct, which happened in 2019, that the model code of conduct which should have been enforced on everybody with level playing field, which was not happened, which is why the election commission got a bad name. And reputation like buildings take years to build and seconds to demolish. So this is what happened. But except for the model code enforcement, rest of the election is fantastic.
No, but Mr. Quraishi, I was just about to ask you about the model code of conduct. Now, with this bill, can we really expect chief election commissioners like T.N. Session, who really questioned the ministers and questioned the prime minister, questioned the people in the authority? Can we really have that that pattern coming up, or all that is a passé now? We can't even imagine all of that, because the way the model code of conduct is bulldozed, and especially in the recent elections, if you've seen, we hardly see election commission questioning the prime minister or maybe the home minister. They hardly do that.
Yeah, of course, things have changed. There is always evolution. Mr. Session was a part of the evolution, and what is happening now is a part of evolution. Things have changed, definitely.
So your concluding remarks, sir, on this bill, what would you really say to the government and to the people who expect that, India holds a free and fair elections, but they look like a disappointed lot?
Yeah. No, I still feel that if two things could be done. One, that the protection of the two election commissioners can be brought back as in the original bill. Second, the collegium could be made more rational instead of being what it is now, and a little bold and out of the box thinking, make it a unanimous decision, and just see the difference on the credibility of the institution.
Thank you so much, Mr. Quraishi, for joining on The Federal. And one appeal to the viewers who are watching this interview: subscribe to our channel, send us your feedback, and stay tuned to The Federal.
Subscribe to The Federal's YouTube page for more news and updates.